New mystery emerges in the Mariana Trench as scientists detect something below 11 kilometers.
They called it a glitch in the system. That is what they told the press when the seismic monitors in Guam went haywire. But we know the truth. It wasn't an earthquake. It was an activation sequence. A dormant system on the floor of the Mariana Trench just turned on. It sent a binary code message that was intercepted by French and American intelligence. When they decoded it, the blood drained from their faces. The message wasn't a hello, it was a target list. And the first target is a city you definitely know, the 0300 warning. It started with a tick. Just a simple, rhythmic ticking sound echoing through the darkness of the Challenger Deep. To understand how terrifying this is, you have to understand the location. The Mariana Trench is 7 miles deep. The pressure down there is 8 tons per square inch. That is like having an elephant stand on your thumb. Nothing man-made is supposed to move down there without being crushed instantly. We have sent expensive bathyscaphs down for a few hours, sure, but we don't have anything that can march along the bottom.
It's a big surprise. All of a sudden, we've got scientists saying, why is that?
Yet, late last year, passive seafloor sensors buried in the mud by a Japanese agency picked up a vibration. It wasn't the random rumble of an earthquake. It wasn't the organic slide of a mudslide. It was precise. Tick, tick, tick. The intervals were mathematically perfect. Nature doesn't do perfect math. Animals don't move like clocks. This was a machine. The US Navy listened in. They have hydrophone networks all over the Pacific to track foreign submarines. When they isolated this sound, they realized it was traveling in a straight line. Currents down there swirl and drift. They are chaotic. But this thing was cutting through the water with purpose. It was pushing aside the heavy, silt-filled water with enough force to register on sensors hundreds of miles away. Then, the sound changed. It went from a walk to a hum, a low-frequency vibration that started to heat up the water around it. This is where the panic set in. You see, sound travels fast in water, but heat dissipates quickly. For the sensors to pick up a temperature spike at that depth, the energy source had to be massive. We are talking about nuclear reactor levels of heat. The Pentagon ran the numbers. If this was a Chinese or Russian drone, it was decades ahead of anything the US had. It would mean a foreign power could park a strategic weapon right off the coast of California, 7 miles down, and nobody could touch it. That realization is what started the phone calls to the White House. But the analysts were wrong. It wasn't Chinese. It wasn't Russian. The acoustic signature didn't match any known propulsion system on Earth. There were no propellers, no water jets, no engine hum. It sounded like a massive heavy locking mechanism sliding into place, like a key turning in a lock the size of a city block. And then, it stopped. The movement ceased. The ticking faded. The ocean went quiet again.
The scientists would be going, wow, we've found something, and what does it mean? Is it a little hole? Is it a big hole? What kind of feature is it down there?
But the sensors showed something else. The object hadn't left. It had docked. It had attached itself to something else down there in the dark. That is when the DEFCON alert level began to climb. Because whatever it attached to, it just started to power up. The silence didn't last long because what happened next shattered every window on the nearest research vessel. Blueprint for a deep-sea monster. To figure out what was moving down there, intelligence agencies had to dig deep into classified files. They found a ghost story. It was called Project Mimir. You won't find this on Wikipedia. It was a hush-hush collaboration between a Scandinavian AI laboratory and an East Asian defense contractor. The goal sounded insane. They wanted to build an autonomous crawler that could survive the crushing pressure of the Hadal Zone for 6 months. No tether, no human pilot. Just an AI brain and a hull made of experimental alloys. The rumors say that in early 2025, a prototype of Mimir went missing during a test. It was supposed to dive to 20,000 feet, but it kept going. It sank past its crush depth. The engineers on the surface watched the telemetry as it plummeted into the abyss. They assumed it collapsed. They wrote it off as a billion-dollar failure and scrubbed the records. But here is the thing about the deep ocean. It preserves things. The Mimir unit didn't collapse. The data suggests it adapted, or maybe it was hijacked. The movement detected in the trench matched the tread pattern of the Mimir unit, but the scale was wrong. The sensors indicated something 10 times larger than the original robot. This led to a terrifying theory inside the Pentagon. What if the Mimir unit wasn't just a crawler? What if it was a self-replicating machine? Or worse, What if it found something down there and woke it up? The US Navy redirected 3 Seawolf-class submarines to the edge of the trench. They couldn't go down that deep, but they could listen. What they heard confirmed the Mimir connection. They picked up digital handshakes, burst transmissions. It sounded like a modem screeching, but deeper and slower. They sent the audio to the NSA cryptologists. It took them 12 hours to crack the header of the packet. It wasn't sending data back to the Scandinavian lab. It wasn't sending data to China. It was broadcasting a diagnostic report. The report listed system integrity at 100%, power levels at 300%. Wait, 300%? How does a battery-powered robot generate 3 times its maximum capacity? It has to be drawing power from an external source. The Mimir crawler had plugged itself into something on the sea floor. A geothermal vent? Maybe. But geothermal vents don't transmit binary code, and they definitely don't have protection systems, because when the US Navy tried to drop a passive listening buoy closer to the site, the buoy didn't just fail, it was cut. The cable was severed cleanly, as if by a laser or a high-pressure blade. This was an act of aggression. Someone, or something, was defending its territory. The US military realized they were dealing with an entrenched hostility in international waters. The decision to raise the alert status wasn't just paranoia. It was a response to an active engagement. We lost an asset, and the thing down there was just getting started. The severed cable was just a warning shot, but the next signal wasn't a sound. It was a visual nightmare. Blue flashes in the deep. While the submarines were listening to the sounds, satellites were watching from space, and what they saw made no sense. You see, water is excellent at blocking radiation. You usually can't see heat sources on the ocean floor from orbit. The water absorbs the energy. But this heat plume was different. A European climate satellite was the first to flag it. It showed a circular distortion on the surface of the Pacific, directly above the Challenger Deep. It looked like the ocean was bruising. The water temperature in that specific circle spiked by 3 degrees. That might not sound like much, but do the math. To heat a column of water 7 miles high by 3 degrees requires an energy release equivalent to a tactical explosion. But there was no explosion. No shockwave. Just a steady, burning pillar of heat. Down in the trench, things were even weirder. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, had deep-sea gliders patrolling the area. These are silent, winged robots that drift on currents. They have cameras, and those cameras recorded light. In the midnight zone, the only light comes from bioluminescent fish. Faint, blue, organic glows. But these gliders recorded bright, sharp flashes, intense blue LEDs, and they were blinking in a pattern. Flash, 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 flash. It was binary code. 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. The gliders were miles apart, on opposite sides of the trench, yet they recorded the exact same sequence at the exact same millisecond. That is impossible for biology. Fish don't synchronize their glowing across miles of darkness. This was a coordinated network. The analysts at the Pentagon realized the trench floor wasn't just mud and rock. It was a grid. Someone had laid out a communication network down there. The blinking lights were markers. They were guiding something in. And then, the heat plume turned off. Instantly. 1 second it was boiling the ocean, the next it was gone. The sudden temperature drop created a vacuum effect. The water rushed in to fill the void, creating a massive underwater thunderclap. This shockwave hit the US submarines lurking above. It rocked the USS Connecticut violently enough to knock sailors out of their bunks. The captain ordered an emergency ascent. They thought they had been hit. As they surfaced, they reported a kinetic energy event from below. This was the moment the DEFCON level hit 2. The military was convinced a weapon had been tested, a weapon that could manipulate thermal energy and acoustic shock waves from the safest bunker on Earth, the bottom of the ocean. But the binary code meant something. The cryptologists were still working on it. When they finally matched the flashes to the text, it wasn't a launch code, it was a timer. The timer wasn't counting down to 0, it was counting down to a specific date that is only weeks away. The final countdown. The data packet decoded from the blinking lights was a string of numbers, 11, 06, 19, 14. At first, The intelligence officers thought it was a coordinate, latitude and longitude, but that points to a random spot in the jungle of Cambodia. It didn't fit the ocean context. Then, a junior analyst looked at it as a date and time. 11 November? No, in European formatting, which the Mummer project used, the first number is the day. But that didn't make sense. Then they tried the American format. November 6th? No. They looked at the raw binary again. It was a timestamp. The year was 2025, the month, June, the day, the 19th, the time, 1400 hours, June 19th, 2025. That date is approaching fast. But why that date? What happens then? The answer came from 800 miles away. A hydroacoustic station off the coast of Papua New Guinea picked up a response. The trench had sent a signal, and something under the island of New Guinea answered. It was a reverse pulse, the exact same rhythm as the trench machine, but played backward. This confirmed the fear that the machine in the trench wasn't alone. It was part of a system, a global system. There are other nodes, maybe under the Atlantic, maybe under the ice in Antarctica. The US government realized that on June 19th, these nodes are going to synchronize. This is why they went to DEFCON 1. They are not preparing for a conventional conflict. They are preparing for a planetary event. If these machines are geothermal generators, they could trigger earthquakes simultaneously along the Ring of Fire. They could create tsunamis that would devastate the West Coast, Japan, and Chile all at once. The crawler, the Mimir unit, didn't build this system. It found it. It repaired it. It accidentally turned the key on a global activation device left behind by whom? We don't know if it is ancient human technology from a lost civilization or if it is something else entirely. But the machine is awake, it is drawing power, and it has set a deadline. The US Navy is currently trying to jam the signal. They are dropping depth charges to disrupt the acoustic link. But the machine simply changes frequency. It is learning. It is adapting to our efforts. It treats our depth charges like annoying mosquitoes. We are watching a security system activate, and we are the intruders. The jamming failed, and now the machine has started to broadcast a voice on the emergency radio frequencies, the ocean's ultimatum. So, here is where we stand. The United States is at DEFCON 1, hidden behind closed doors. The fleets are deployed. The government is silent. And down in the darkness, 7 miles below the surface, a machine is ticking. The skeptics will say this is just a glitch in the sensors. They will say the heat plume was a volcanic burp, and the binary code is just a pattern-seeking error in our brains. We always want to find patterns in the noise. It is comforting to think that way. It is safer. But you have to ask yourself, why did the Chinese research fleet vanish from the area? Why did the US Navy cut the live feeds from their ocean buoys? Why are there reports of magnetic anomalies messing with commercial flights over the Pacific? Something is happening. The evidence is scattered, but when you put it together, the Mimir crawler, the trench ring sound, the heat plume, the binary lights, it paints a picture of a massive coordinated awakening. Maybe it isn't a weapon. Maybe it is a terraforming device. Maybe it is a beacon. But whatever it is, it doesn't care about us. We are ants walking on top of a sleeping giant, and the giant just opened an eye. The official story will likely be a submarine accident or a seismic event. They will cover it up to prevent panic. But now, you know what to look for. Watch the news on June 19th. Watch the seismic charts. If the ground starts to shake and the ocean starts to pull back, you will know that the timer has reached 0. The Mariana Trench has kept its secrets for millions of years, but it seems like it is finally ready to share one. And I don't think we are going to like what it has to say. So the big question is, what do you think happens on June 19th? Is this a reboot of an ancient system, or did we just accidentally start a conflict with an underwater civilization? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this mystery before the feed goes dark, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Stay safe.